Now we're going to move on to the next area of the impact of Stalin's rule. This is in terms of his political effect, okay? Stalin as the dictator. Now we're going to look first at one of the key points, the key things which went on in terms of the political impact of Stalin's rule, which was the Great Terror. What was the background behind this? Now, we've learnt about Stalin's 5-year plans already, and basically by the 1930s, these plans had faced growing opposition. Why? Because they had very high human costs, as what we saw earlier in that checklist slide, right? Now, some people didn't even want Stalin to continue with the second 5-year plan. And wow, you can imagine how Stalin would feel about that, right? They even wanted him replaced as the leader. Now, one person, a loyal Communist Party leader called Sergei Kirov, he was a senior Communist Party official, and he actually, like I said, he was loyal to Stalin, but he felt that the terms of the second 5-year plan had to be relaxed. Remember just now we saw the colored bars and how high the targets were. Stalin wanted the terms to be relaxed, okay? And in fact, some party members even had expressed interest, and they told him that he wanted Stalin to be replaced. They wanted Kirov to replace Stalin. Now, knowing Stalin, I want you to answer this question. How do you think he would have felt about this, okay? And I want you to justify your answer. Give me the reason why you would say that. So, well, surprise, surprise, Kirov was soon assassinated under mysterious circumstances. Okay, I'll show you, there's a link to the video which I'll place over here to show you more about that. Alright, so please watch at your own time. Stalin basically took this opportunity, okay, to eliminate his own political opponents, including those who did not support his policies. So, Stalin basically used the assassination of his loyal deputy, okay, Kirov. Alright, you can draw your own conclusions as to what these mysterious circumstances were, but whatever it was, Stalin made full use of this opportunity to eliminate his own political opponents, including those who did not support his policies. Alright, so now Stalin, remember, who is very worried, he does not like challenges to his rule, so now he would take this opportunity to get rid of all his opponents. And how was this done? This was done through purges and show trials. So Stalin used Kirov's death as an excuse to get his NKVD, who are his basically his secret police. If you recall from the previous lesson, we talked about the Cheka. The Cheka then later became the NKVD, and this death was used as an excuse for the NKVD to eliminate what he saw as threats to the Soviet government. Okay, so there were show trials which were set up where prominent party officials like Zinoviev and Kamenev, remember them, right? These were previous potential rivals to Stalin to control, to take over from Lenin, but they lost basically. And show trials were set up where these people were accused of crimes against the country. Alright, and they often confessed even though they were innocent after having been tortured or having their families threatened. Alright, and there's another video here which I'll show you which talks about that. Okay. The Red Army was also purged. If you recall, the last time we learned about the Red Army was with regard to its link to Trotsky, right? Because Stalin, even though by this time now Trotsky was not yet assassinated, but he already was exiled, but Stalin was worried about supporters of Trotsky, right? And as Trotsky was a strong rival of Stalin, Stalin wanted to ensure that any opposition was minimized. So this means that the Red Army also was purged. Okay. There also were many arrests and interrogations carried out. You can see there in the NKVD, people were forced by the NKVD to inform against their friends and family who had voiced opposition to Stalin. Alright, anyone, and really literally anyone, could be arrested and later killed or sent to forced labor camps. Okay, the forced labor camps are known as the gulags. Remember, as I was telling you all, okay, if you get sent to the gulag, gulag to you. Okay, now you stop laughing, I can carry on. Okay, so the entire population was in a state of terror as nobody knew when it was safe to talk, whom to talk to. So you can imagine, you live in an atmosphere whereby anyone next to you, they could potentially denounce you, say bad things about you, and before you know it, you may be arrested and no one ever sees you again. So everyone was in a state of terror. They're very scared to voice any kind of opposition because they never knew what may happen. Okay, no one dared to oppose Stalin due to this atmosphere, and this benefited Stalin. Why? Because he was able to remain in power. Okay, so do take note of this. The atmosphere of fear and suspicion meant that Stalin got people so scared that they didn't even want to oppose him. So this, in the end, would benefit Stalin even more. And through this, more than 1 million people lost their lives through these purges, and this is according to official reports. Okay, so you can imagine, if official reports, that means those which the Soviet government released, say that more than 1 million lost their lives, what do you think the actual number of people who died was like? Do you think it was more or was less? Okay, then tell me why. Please answer that question. Now, many intellectuals, skilled workers and officers were eliminated precisely because Stalin saw them as threats. And this was bad for the country. Okay? It had negative impact on the strength of the country, because if there were less engineers and scientists, right, these are skilled people, right? And remember, the USSR was on a push towards industrialization, but without these technically competent people, these skilled people, right, this means that the size of the skilled workforce would shrink, and this would be to the detriment. This would hurt the USSR's push towards industrialization. Secondly, less administrators and teachers, people who work in the government and teachers. Okay, this means that when these people are purged, the quality of the civil service, that means the government workers now would be of a lower quality, and the quality of education, if a lot of teachers are killed, the quality of education also would be lowered, and this also would have an impact on the strength of the country. Finally, less Red Army officers, remember, because of the link to Trotsky, a lot of them were purged, and commanders, when these were purged, okay, quality of military leadership also was lowered, and you can imagine the impact of this on the Soviet Union's ability to prepare for World War II was also greatly, it was a very big impact, and this could only serve to weaken the military. So here is kind of like a pictorial representation of what happened under Stalin's rule in terms of his opponents. You can see two pictures here, two original pictures of Stalin and some of his comrades, okay, fellow senior party officials in the Communist Party. And you can see as time went by, people like this guy, Yezhov, okay, who was even one of the people whom in the earlier years of Stalin's purges was responsible for the deaths of many of Stalin's opponents. But in the end, Stalin also grew suspicious of him, and he was purged, alright? Wiped off the face of the Soviet Union. We never see him again. Same thing for these people, one by one. You can see that, okay, Stalin got rid of them, alright? And these pictures are apt illustrations of how, basically Stalin wanted it to be so clear, right? He didn't even want people to have memories of them, and worrying that then there may be some residual remaining loyalty to them, and he didn't want that. So they were basically totally wiped off the face of the Soviet Union, and you don't see any mention of them anymore. So now we move on to the second aspect of how Stalin was able to ensure control as a dictator, and that was through the use of propaganda, okay, the softer approach, so to speak. So not just making people scared of him, but also making people think of him positively, almost as a god. That's why the word cult, right? Cult is a word, basically it means something like a religion. So viewing their leader almost like a god. Okay, so when you go to the Soviet Union, or rather when you go to Russia, okay, these are some pictures which I took when I was there recently. You can see that even today there are many remnants of Stalin's rule, and you can see many statues, okay, busts and posters and pictures of Stalin. This was the kind of impression which people would have of him at that time. You see, very positive. All these are painted in a very positive way. Okay, lots of propaganda around. Okay, and this basically was all towards the end of making people so enthralled, so amazed by Stalin, okay, that they would revere him, respect him, and revere him as their leader, almost like a god. Okay, so he was portrayed as, you can see there in this with the little child, so he's portrayed as a father figure to his people in various media, such as these forms over here. Okay, you can see at a rally for Stalin, his picture is all over the place. he was described as a wise leader, okay, and all of the Soviet Union's, all of the USSR's achievements and successes were credited to his leadership. So everything good was because of him. Okay, Soviet history was rewritten to make it look as if he was actually Stalin's rightful successor. So what we learned earlier on about the rise of Stalin and all those things about some of his rivals, okay, it was all made known, it wasn't made known, okay, but rather everything was rewritten, okay, to make it seem as if it was him all along. Whatever opponents he did have, even if they were mentioned, they all were described negatively, right? And Stalin was always the one, according to this Soviet history. What's the impact of this? Okay, there was a personality cult created, like I said. Okay, he was almost like a god to them. Okay, this was also during a time whereby religion was discouraged, so that people may not have divided loyalties towards their god and towards Stalin. They were to listen to Stalin. Okay, so through this personality cult, many were convinced to support his policies and worship him, and this helped Stalin remain in power. So you can see here, even today, right? Excuse me, this is a recent photo taken of a man who probably was growing up during the time of Stalin's rule, okay, and probably has been influenced by all what he learned in school, which was all very positive about Stalin. Okay, and you can see him even today expressing his affection towards Stalin. And in a recent poll, Stalin was even voted the third best Russian, okay, in spite of all the negative things which we have learned about him. Okay, so even today, this is today, not during the time of Stalin's rule. Stalin has been dead for over 60 years already. Okay, he died in 1953. Yet even today, there are many people who still have a very positive impression of him.